Join Peter Jennings.
Uncertain whether the violence in a number of cities has run its course. In so much of the country, many Americans are still trying to put together everything that has happened and what it all means. We begin with the state of siege in Los Angeles. More than 35 people have died. More than 1,300 have been injured. More than 3,000 people are under arrest. The police and the National Guard do not yet have the city completely under their control. Our first report is from ABC's John Martin, who is there.
At dawn, smoke still hung over the city, but it seemed that the curfew had worked. Streets were largely deserted. Today, much of the downtown district was quiet. The stock exchange was open, but almost nobody came to trade. Universities shut down. USC postponed final exams. Many workers stayed home. Drivers lined up to buy gas from stations that had closed last night. All night, National Guard troops and police patrolled to enforce the curfew. All this only hours after some shopkeepers, this one Korean, fought off looters. Many Koreans suffered total losses. Blacks targeted their stores with a vengeance. Some black businesses nearby, labeled as black-owned, escaped damage. But even black shop owners were struck.
I don't believe it had anything to do with Rodney King. I think it has to do with people's greed.
This morning, the number of fires still burning was down to 5. There had been 5,000 reported alarms involving 2,000 homes and stores hit by arson in 24 hours. Firefighters got their first chance to catch their breath. But in the Crenshaw district, a black pharmacy and clinic burned this morning before fire trucks could get there. 2 young women ran out to weep in the arms of Jesse Jackson, who had come to look at the area himself.
There are more young black males today in jails than there are in colleges. I mean, will we not finally get the point?
At a post office in the riot area, residents lined up for Social Security checks and monthly welfare assistance.
We need to have our money, you know, to go on every day.
But the lines were overwhelming. An official called for order as hundreds worried about whether they would get checks to buy necessities.
These are not the people who bombed and looted and destroyed the stores. These people want to get their money.
Police were still under fire today. 3 officers were hit with flying glass in a sniper attack. A suspect was shot in return. National Guard troops were beginning to move into positions, to the relief of Mayor Tom Bradley.
The Justice Department has announced that a federal grand jury is now investigating whether the officers who beat Rodney King violated his civil rights. President Bush is going to talk to the nation tonight about the situation in the country. This morning, Mr. Bush said the force of anarchy cannot be allowed to continue, and he ordered the federal government to come to the aid of those people who need it. At the White House this evening, ABC's Britt Hume.
The president met with his high command early this morning and took added steps to deal with the Los Angeles violence. As announced by spokesman Fitzwater, 1,000 federal law officers were being sent to help local authorities. 4,000 Army and Marine forces were also being mobilized in case Mr. Bush later decides to declare a state of emergency and use them.
We want to emphasize that we expect all state and local efforts to control this situation to be exhausted before federal military are utilized.
Much of the president's morning was devoted to meeting with veteran civil rights leaders with whom he's often disagreed, but who were invited to the White House today. Officials keep saying the president has no comment on the King verdict. But Mr. Bush told those leaders he'd been, quote, shocked and amazed by it. They, in turn, demanded he order the federal prosecution of the acquitted Los Angeles policeman.
The president said he would take it under serious consideration. He didn't want to put words in the Attorney General's mouth, but that he would take it under immediate consideration.
The leaders generally supported Mr. Bush's alerting of the troops, but left no doubt their cooperation is a matter of necessity, not choice.
George Bush is the only president we have. Are we going to appeal to Reagan, to Carter, to Ford? No. We're appealing to George Bush because he's the president, and we're going to work with him to see that he does what he ought to do.
The president is trying to be at once firm in dealing with the violence and yet sensitive to legitimate grievances. It is a delicate balance which places a heavy but inescapable burden of expectation on tonight's speech. Britt Hume, ABC News, the White House.
We'll have a special report tonight from 9 to 9:30 this evening Eastern Time. President Bush will, of course, speak, and we'll also talk to Mayor Bradley of Los Angeles. Around the country today, some people felt compelled to express their outrage at the King verdict in public ways again. Some were peaceful, and some were not. At Atlanta's University Center, students who had been demonstrating all day were confronted by National Guardsmen trying to prevent them from leaving the campus. The shouting turned into an exchange of rocks and bottles from one side and tear gas from the other. Elsewhere in the country, the governor of Nevada called out the National Guard today to restore order in Las Vegas. After a night of violence and looting, homes and businesses were burned and 3 people are dead. By daybreak today in the San Francisco area, 1,400 people had been arrested. A state of emergency was declared in the city itself. People blocked bridges and freeways and disrupted downtown shopping areas. The cleanup continues today in Seattle, where some people overturned cars and looted downtown stores for most of last night. There were peaceful demonstrations today in, among other places, Richmond, Virginia, Chicago, and New York. In New York City, thousands of students marched to a rally at City Hall. Persistent rumors of violence caused businesses to close throughout the city, but there have been no reports of any violence. In a moment, we'll return to Los Angeles.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, brought to you by Cotton Incorporated.
In the silent dawn, a golden sun, soft kiss, warm smile, the day's begun, the touch, the feel, the fabric of our lives, the touch, the feel of cotton, the fabric of our lives.
Have you ever wondered how a professional painter can always get such great results? Because no matter what the job, he'll always start off in the exact same place. At a Sherwin-Williams store, there's only one paint that's good, and there's only one place you can get it. The pros know. Ask Sherwin-Williams.
With at least 35 people dead, more people have died in Los Angeles in the last 48 hours than were killed during the week of riots that tore apart the Watts section of that city in the summer of 1965. One young man on the streets last night said, "Yes, it's gotten out of hand, but society has gotten out of hand." In Los Angeles tonight, many people want to get as far away from what they fear as they possibly can. Here's ABC's Judy Muller.
Like refugees leaving a war zone, many L.A. residents today fled to safer ground, like Santa Barbara, where hotels are now turning people away. Those who could not leave were stocking up.
We're experiencing about twice as much business as we normally would on a Friday morning.
Following a night of fear, people had developed a bunker mentality.
I fear for my kids. I don't let them go out of the house. I'm not going to watch them get hurt.
They were stocking up not only on bread, but on bullets.
38 specials are $10.95.
Although gun shops in L.A. have been ordered closed, this shop in neighboring Glendale is doing a brisk business. Unlike the Watts riots of the 60s, this violence has spread out of South Central L.A. to wealthier neighborhoods. Last night there was looting near Beverly Hills and in Hollywood, where residents barricaded their streets. As the trouble spread, so did the fear. Even though this neighborhood in West L.A. is less than 10 miles from South Central, the two communities have been worlds apart until this week. Laura and Justin McCormick live here. They have become increasingly anxious as the violence comes closer and closer.
I wasn't old enough to remember Vietnam or a lot of these incidences, but that's what I feel like. I feel like we're in the middle of like a war or something.
I think people were shocked when the verdict came down. But I mean, I don't think violence or looting is the answer, and I think that's obvious. And it's not going to make things better. It's just going to make things worse.
On the other side of town, some people feel that the upward mobility of fear is not such a bad thing.
When you've lived in a state of fear for as long as I've lived it, you know, you can't help but kind of have a sense of gratitude when other people have to experience some of what you've been experiencing.
But few are likely to share his sense of gratitude, given what this city has been through and the fears of what is to come. Judy Muller, ABC News, Los Angeles.
In those neighborhoods which have been extensively damaged, there is little or no opportunity for people to leave. Some of them are places of such despair that the Reverend Jesse Jackson said today young men who do leave because they are sent to prison actually often believe they're going to a better place. Today in those neighborhoods where people have burned or looted what little they have, it is, if possible, worse. Here's ABC's Brian Rooney.
They burned the dry cleaners, the corner markets, and looted the shoe stores. They walked away with furniture. What's left is closed, protected by the National Guard. Rioters destroyed many businesses owned by people who do not live here, but they also destroyed the neighborhood for the people who do. A lot of these shops are not insured and will not reopen. In 2 days, the looters took just about everything inside the ABC Market, a large neighborhood store where you could cash your check or get credit for groceries.
Really, I don't understand it. My employees don't understand it because this is their community, but that's the way they chose to handle it.
A lot of the people got caught up in the moment of what they were doing. I guarantee you it wasn't the average person that lives here.
Some families who live within sight of the ABC Market will now have to travel several miles to get groceries.
Where do I go and buy milk for my children now? They have burned up everything. Where do I go and get food for my family? Okay? It have hurt the black community tremendously.
There is no single mind or purpose at work here. Everybody shares the same frustrations, but a day later, the community itself is debating why this happened. This man said it was a good thing.
It looks bad, but what happens? Now they have to go to the black-owned stores that wasn't hit.
That provoked an argument.
This is not a black issue. This is a human issue.
Some of the people at the cleanup today were also here yesterday. Some of the people around here told me that you were one of the guys here yesterday. They saw you leave here with a couple of shopping carts full of stuff.
They didn't lie either.
Now he and many others will have to live with what they did. Brian Rooney, ABC News, South Central Los Angeles.
It is a reflection of the chaos in Los Angeles tonight that most of the people killed in one way or another still have not been identified. Most, but not all, are black. Most, but not all, have died by gunfire. Here's a little more of what we know. Yesterday afternoon, a Latino security guard was killed by looters as he tried to defend the Korean store he was hired to protect. Another of the dead is a white man surrounded by a group of people, pulled off his motorcycle and shot in the head. Police say they shot and killed at least 6 people who were firing at them. But most of the other deaths are still being investigated. At one hospital, a doctor said many of them were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. In a moment, how it looks to observers overseas.
Stay within the lines. The lines are our friends. Stay within them. Stay within the lines. The lines are our friends.
Introducing the world's first V6 crayon.
Are you listening?
The Isuzu Rodeo, built to go way outside the lines.
Red Devil enamel. You can always count on its durable finish. Harder than ordinary paints, its beauty lasts and lasts. Red Devil enamel for the finish of a lifetime.
Dear Thompson's, when the store ran out of Thompson's water seal, we finished our deck with another brand. What a mistake. The Thompson's side beat it up, the other side, nothing. Even the clerk agreed. Nothing works like Thompson's. Sincerely, Becky Jones, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Hey, is Tegrin shampoo on sale?
Nope, that's their new lower price.
But it's still just as tough on dandruff, right?
Sure, Tegrin doesn't do less, just costs less.
Sounds right to me.
Tegrin, the right dandruff shampoo at the right price.
I'm trying it and I feel great.
It's Grape Nuts. Try it for a week.
Breakfast with Grape Nuts helps keep us going all morning. It's a natural energy source and it's fat-free.
Post Grape Nuts cereal. Try it for a week.
You'll feel so good you did.
Overseas, the riots in Los Angeles have hit a particular nerve in South Korea. In Los Angeles, more than 100 stores owned by Korean Americans have been looted or burned. The South Korean government says the U.S. should now station special guards to protect Korean businesses. In many other countries, people are asking, what does all this say about the United States? Here's ABC's Mark Liedtke.
From London
Guten Abend.
to Berlin to Tokyo,
It has filled the airwaves and dominated the headlines. Flames of hate in the City of Angels, the shaming of America, and the coverage is shaping the world's opinion of America.
I never seen that before. It's crazy.
I feel that America's one step away from South Africa.
French President Francois Mitterrand today blamed the Bush administration for neglecting social issues. Libya had a propaganda field day, calling the violence a black rebellion. The Times of London today even questioned America's future effectiveness in international diplomacy.
This is going to be difficult if people, particularly on the human rights level, are going to turn around to them and say, you can't get things right in your own backyard.
In Great Britain and Japan, tourists have been warned to stay away from troubled areas in Los Angeles. It was on the minds of those flying to LA from London this morning.
I'm a little bit concerned, but we'll just stay clear of the trouble.
Then there have been the demonstrations of solidarity, especially from ethnic minorities in several countries.
I'm all the way over here in England, and I feel it. I feel what my brothers and sisters are feeling in LA. I really do.
Criticism of violence and racism in America is nothing new, but overseas tonight, the Rodney King affair has seriously tarnished America's image as a symbol of justice and democracy. Mark Litkey, ABC News, London.
We'll have some of the day's other news in just a moment.
How could this happen? They've taken the secret.
Europeans are upset. The Kellogg's Muesli cereal uses their secret recipe.
This we kept in the family.
After all, they've been guarding this delicious secret forever. Ah, but this luscious blend of sweet fruit, crunchy nuts, and crisp whole grains was destined to become Kellogg's Mueslix.
Angelina, you told?
It wasn't me. I swear.
Kellogg's Mueslix, the European secret for great taste.
I'll take the special.
I'll take the special.
I'll take the special.
And you should too. The monthly specials at True Value hardware stores. Like this 6-inch window thermometer and 5-inch rain gauge from Taylor. Both for just $249. They make it easy to watch the weather. In April, get both for $249 while supplies last. That's just one of the terrific specials at True Value, the neighborhood hardware stores with national buying power.
I'll take the special.
Your GM dealer is serious about putting service back in the service department.
How serious?
Come in for a Mr. Goodwrench Quick Lube Plus oil change and you could win one of 21 GM cars or light trucks. Or you could win one of millions of other prizes. In fact, everyone's a winner. Just come in, scratch, and win during the Flag of Winter sweepstakes at your Mr. Goodwrench Quick Lube Plus dealer.
I think they really are serious.
Take a 3, 4, or 7-day fun ship vacation to the Bahamas, Caribbean, or Mexican Riviera on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
I need a laxative that can work dependably.
Doxadan can.
But can it be gentle?
Doxadan can. Doxadan works dependably overnight with a special ingredient for gentle relief.
Dependable, yes. Gentle, yes.
Doxadan can.
In other news today, the Secretary of Agriculture, Edward Madigan, has promised a full investigation of health and safety practices at several meat processing plants in the country. He has done so following a report on ABC's Primetime Live last night about unsanitary conditions and contaminated meat. Here's ABC's Bob Jamieson.
The undercover investigation focused on slaughterhouses in Texas, Colorado, Nebraska, and Kansas, which produce 20% of the nation's beef. Hidden cameras looked inside the plants owned by National Beef, Montfort, and Excel. The Department of Agriculture permits these companies to inspect their own meat for cleanliness under a plan called the Streamlined Inspection System. And under that plan, not every carcass is inspected for contamination, as it was when government employees did the job. The hidden cameras found widespread evidence of contamination. Steers covered with dirt, shotgun pellets inside beef ready for the market. A 1,000-pound carcass falls onto a floor covered with animal waste and blood. It is dragged across the floor and allowed to contaminate other carcasses. While gutting a steer, this worker in Texas cuts its intestine, and animal waste spills onto the production line. One company inspector said she was frequently asked to approve meat contaminated with hair and teeth. Agriculture Secretary Edward Madigan ordered an immediate investigation, but will not stop the streamlined inspection system while a review is underway.
We have the safest system, safest inspection system
in the world, and other countries in the world acknowledge that. But obviously there's a breakdown here somewhere, and we want to get to the root of this.
Madigan rejected charges. The Agriculture Department's relationship with meat packers is too cozy. But he did order an investigation into charges USDA officials overruled an inspector and permitted the sale of 53 tons of beef contaminated with plastic shavings. Bob Jamieson, ABC News, Chicago.
On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrials lost 23 points to close at 33.36. The trading was moderate. For the week, stocks gained more than 11 points. Well, Louisville, Kentucky is bracing for the French invasion tomorrow. That French horse, Arazi, is the heavy favorite to win the 118th running of the Kentucky Derby. Arazi's jockey, Pat Valenzuela, boasts that the only race for the other horses will be for second place. Well, maybe. Here's ABC's Dick Schaap.
As surely as the sun rises in the east, many horsemen say, Arazi is going to win the Kentucky Derby. Bred in Kentucky, trained in France, co-owned by an American millionaire and an Arab sheikh, Arazi, with this dazzling move,
and he's coming with a menacing rush to Bertrando.
This incredible burst of speed in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last fall demonstrated that he is a wonder horse, that he can fly.
Probably the most difficult part is getting the saddle on over the wings.
Jokes aside, Arazi has a chance to revive the racing business, depressed by economics and by the lack of a superstar since Affirmed, the last horse to win the Triple Crown 14 years ago.
Yeah, Arazi's probably, the closest horse that I've ridden since Affirmed that I could compare to him.
He's very, very impressive. I mean, he might be another Secretariat, really.
Secretariat was a giant of his sport. Arazi is a smallish colt with a white stripe that slashes across his face. But he runs big. He has won 8 straight races. He is clearly the best horse in the Derby. But no favorite has won the Derby in 13 years.
The best horse doesn't always win. When you have 19 horses, you can have traffic problems. I think there are other questions about him. He's going 1.25 miles for the first time. He's had knee surgery. He's only had 1 prep race, a very easy race in France.
Besides, he flew from Paris to Kentucky only 5 days ago. And yesterday he drew post position 18, far on the outside.
If he walks away from this field, they ought to build a monument for him right out here, because he's a great horse.
Can Arazi lose?
Oh, absolutely. What if his rider falls off?
Shelley Riley owns and trains Casual Lies, a Derby contender. Can Arazi lose? Straight from the horse's mouth. Dick Schaap, ABC News, Louisville.
Okay, we'll be back in just a moment.
Her name is Sarah, and she's lucky, because today she'll encounter egrets doing dances and alligators in the wild. She'll see how other moms take care of their kids, and she'll be doing this, recycling, through a program of the National Park Service and its recycling partner, Dow.
We can make a difference in what tomorrow brings.
Together with the National Park Service and folks like Sarah.
Dow lets you do great things.
Morning! What's for breakfast in modern times?
Oh, just cereal.
Back in my century, we enjoyed grains kept whole for a more natural, hearty taste.
New great grains.
You bet it's great. Toasted wheat, oats, and barley. Kept whole, full of flavor.
Great. Dates, raisins, even pecans. This really is delicious.
Now I'm hungry. Got another bowl?
What was great back then is great grains now. A great new cereal from Post.
Of a new car, yet rarely do they come together so beautifully. Presenting the all-new 1992 Toyota Camry. We just couldn't leave well enough alone.
Stay with ABC News for updates on the unrest gripping Los Angeles and the nation.
Please, we can get along here. We all can get along.
And on 2020 special live coverage. Then a special Nightline with Ted Koppel from L.A. tonight.
Finally this evening, 25 years on. All across the country, as best we can tell, vastly more people than not, whether white or non-white, have been shocked by the verdict and saddened by the violence. Many older Americans remember the civil rights struggle of the 1960s, and sometimes the violence that accompanied that struggle. For their children, who weren't even born then, there is a particular sense of despair. Here's ABC's George Strait.
These are the young people who benefited from the battles won by their mothers and fathers during the 60s, but who now feel pain and betrayal at how limited those victories were. Listen to students at Howard University, the nation's largest black college.
What is defining about this incident is that in some way all of us, I think, were made to believe by our parents, by the media, by our history textbooks, that there had been some major changes made in the 60s, that despite the fact that racism is still rampant, that it was no longer legal. And that when you see this King case, it's just proof beyond proof that it's still legal.
I feel hatred, I feel rage. What should be my response? How do you want me to work within these confines to show my disgust for the American system?
This violence, it may not be an answer. Two wrongs don't make it right, but sometimes it does make it even.
On the Howard campus, students say the King verdict should also shock whites who had denied how much racism exists in this country.
Personally, I was more under the impression that racism was on its way down, but it seems like it's just climbed back up to the top again.
This to me is a confirmation of my worst fears and my worst opinions about my country. That this is white America saying to black America, hey, this is what it's like here.
There seems to be a special anguish among teenagers who had only heard or read about racial violence.
It's really changed the way I think about America. I think that, I guess in my youth I was thinking, it's going to get better. And then when everything you believe in, the government who's supposed to be there for you, the judicial system who's supposed to be there, just totally fails.
But many think something positive can be gained from the King verdict.
I don't think that we should be thinking that everything is good and everything is going to turn out for the best, because it doesn't.
As much as they may not want to, it is clear to these young people that the King verdict means they will have to fight many of the same battles their parents fought 30 years ago. George Strait, ABC News, Washington.
And that's our report on World News tonight. There will be more on the events in Los Angeles and around the country later this evening on 2020, and then on a special edition of Nightline with Ted Koppel, who is in Los Angeles. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
And now, the news continues with Channel 2 News at 6.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kathy Newgate.
And I'm Bob Mueller. In our news tonight, the search for 10-year-old Michael Booker has ended tragically. The body of the little boy was pulled from the Cumberland River this morning, a short distance from where the body of his 8-year-old brother Tavares was found yesterday. The disappearance of the children sparked a massive search involving hundreds of people.
We'd like to take time to thank the community for helping us and giving us a little strength right here, because we needed it, and it restores your faith in, your fellow man, because everybody has really come together to help us, and we appreciate it and like to say thank you.
Police believe the deaths were accidental, but the investigation is still underway. Well, the city of Nashville mourns the loss of the Booker brothers because people from almost every neighborhood were somehow involved in the search. Channel 2 Stuart Watson found the plight of the two boys captured the compassion of Nashville. Stuart?
Bob, after 5 days, we felt like we knew them. There was Michael, the kid they sometimes called Reverend Booker because he liked to tell other kids to do right. And his 8-year-old kid brother, Tavares, known as T, the kid who wouldn't eat anybody's cooking but his mom's. A couple of kids whose plight pulled at our hearts.
If anybody out there hear my voice, please help us hunt for these kids.
The family asked for help, and help arrived. Volunteers from across the city handed out flyers and posted rewards. Hundreds of police searched every nook and cranny of the neighborhood. The National Guard walked the woods. For 5 agonizing days, it was not enough.
We had discussed this. They told me, they said, Mama, if anything happened to us, what will you do? I said, I'll move heaven and earth for you, because I will find you. And I can just hear them saying, Mama, why you